It began in 1946 in the quiet town of Texarkana, Texas, a string of brutal, horrific killings that made headlines across the United States and beyond. Originally coined the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, the crimes committed by this unknown assailant still haunt the world today, especially thanks to two movies bearing the same ominous title, The Town That Dreaded Sundown. We'll discuss those movies in a moment, but first, let's go back to that fateful year and examine the real-life horrors that inspired them. Around midnight on February 22, 1946, Jimmy Hollis and his girlfriend, Mary Jean Larray, were sharing a private moment at a popular lover's lane on the outskirts of town. That's when they encountered a tall stranger, his face hidden by a white hood. What happened next was described by police as an armed robbery that took a more violent turn. Though both victims survived, Jimmy was severely beaten, and Mary Jean was violently molested. Police spent the next month searching for the perpetrator, but turned up no clues. Then, on March 24th, he struck again. This time, there were no survivors. Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore had chosen their own secluded parking spot near the railroad tracks when the masked man attacked. But this time, their car was spotted by a passing motorist. When he pulled over, he discovered the aftermath of a gruesome double murder. Griffin and Moore had been shot in the back of the head. Blood tracks suggested the woman's body had been dragged outside the car. Police had established the killer's MO, and the investigation expanded to a full-scale manhunt. A reward was posted, and several suspects were questioned, but still, no conclusive evidence was found. It wasn't long before the next murders occurred, in the early hours of Sunday, April 14th. After playing saxophone with her band at a social event, teenager Betty Jo Booker got a ride home from her friend Paul Martin, but by sunrise, both of them were dead. This time, the details of the crime were different. Paul's body was discovered first on the side of the road, with multiple gunshots to the head, but the remains of Betty Jo were not at the same location. In fact, her body was found almost 2 miles away. At this point, police were convinced the citizens of Texarkana were being hunted by a killer with a distinct pattern. He struck every 3 or 4 weeks, always on weekends, and always at night. Then, on the night of May 3rd, the killer struck again. Virgil and Katie Starks were relaxing at home when gunshots shattered their living room window. Virgil was shot multiple times in the back of the head, and 2 bullets struck Katie in the face. She was still conscious and managed to flee the house just as the killer climbed into the kitchen window. She ran to a neighbor's residence before finally collapsing from blood loss. Katie survived, but unfortunately could not identify her husband's murderer. The only piece of evidence from the Starks attack was a flashlight apparently dropped by the killer. It bore no fingerprints. No one knew who it might have belonged to. By now, the town was in a state of panic. Curfews and roadblocks were set up, and residents began arming themselves, installing new locks and boarding up windows. Police patrolled day and night, and businesses closed early. By sunset, Texarkana became a ghost town. As rumor and suspicion spread, the unseen murderer had become a local boogeyman. Newspapers gave him different nicknames, but the one that stuck was the Phantom Killer. Then, all at once, the killing stopped. A month passed, then 2, then 3. No new crimes were reported. By the summer of '46, the investigation slowed to a crawl, and gradually the townspeople returned to some semblance of normal life. Among those closest to the investigation, the prime suspect is still a car thief named Ewell Swinney, whose wife made a statement linking him to the murders, but by law she could not be forced to testify against him. As a result, authorities were unable to convict Swinney, who neither confirmed nor denied his guilt. Filmmaker Charles B. Pierce began researching the details of the case for his 1976 film, The Town That Dreaded Sundown. The movie hit theaters 30 years after the real crimes took place, terrifying audiences who had never even heard of the Phantom Killer. But the film also drew new attention to Texarkana. Controversy grew as the film opened wider, and relatives of the victims and investigators disputed the liberties the film took with the details of the case, leading the family of one victim to sue the filmmakers in 1978. This artistic license taken by Pierce resulted in the film's most notorious scene. Betty Jo Booker's saxophone was rewritten as a trombone, which the killer transforms into a bizarre weapon. The film also features one of the horror genre's first metafictional moments. In the final shot, we see the shoes of the unidentified killer, presumably standing in line for a ticket to the premiere. That formed the jumping-off point for the sequel, in which a new killer begins reenacting the original murders. The Phantom Killer case remains unsolved. But if you have any information that might help identify one of history's most elusive serial killers, email us at theunsolved@dreadcentral.com. All sources will be kept anonymous.